All right, so the advantages of repositioning using an existing structure, so as opposed to ground up. Existing building can save you money on construction costs because you already have the footprint and a lot of steel, more than likely. Generally faster to renovate. You can have heritage and historical value in elements, including tax credits. Potentially larger floor plates. The older buildings usually take up more square footage than they do now. Building story, like if you have a really cool building, it can have a great story, which just goes well when you're selling it. And it can have some unique, cool features. Like in some of the older cities, they turned old like bank vaults and old warehouse. Some of the old warehouse spaces in Dallas are 3 stories with steel and these crazy doors, and they left all that. So how do you have a warehouse for animals that's 4 stories is just crazy to me, but they did. So there's a lot of cool stuff in these really old buildings that are very unique, and they made them so sturdy back then with steel, especially the old bank buildings, like the Dallas Vault where the Fed was. Really cool building in Dallas. They turned it into an apartment complex called Southside on the Mar. Really cool project though. It's a value added for the community. Generates income and taxes in idle buildings, job creation, government support, because they want to see that building not be such an eyesore. Increased sales price per foot in the area, increased land values of surrounding real estate. So all those are definitely pros. Now, some of the challenges of repositioning, getting approvals can be very time consuming when you're going after an existing structure. Not always the case, but depending on what city you're in too. Like the city of Austin right now is taking way too long. Dallas is better, but then you get outside the main markets, it becomes a little bit easier. With large scale renovation, structural upgrading can become costly because most of the time when people are buying these buildings, they're expanding and going vertical or figuring out how to maximize the value of this asset. And that can be difficult when you're trying to match that with what's currently available. For the most part, you must work within the current floor plan unless there is more land that makes sense, but a lot of these still have that impervious coverage regulation, so you got to watch it. And the major renovations also generally mean all systems and requirements need to be brought to today's building regulations. So sometimes we can get grandfathered in, but on major renovations like a gut job, it's going to be pretty tough to get all of that grandfathered in. And what they're going to make you do is, if you don't have an elevator, they're going to make you put an elevator in. Or if you do have one that's not the code, you got to build a new shaft, build everything new there. Almost guaranteed you're going to have to come up with ADA regulations at least a big chunk of the building. So you can have people in wheelchairs and just have accessibility. That can be a big cost. So that can be a challenge as well. Reworking the internal and external piping for heating, cooling, plumbing can also be very expensive. It's not always easily accessible. Doesn't always work well, can have holes in places. I mean, it can just get very costly, especially you're taking a really old, cool building. You want to maintain the integrity of the building and keep some of these cool features, right? But sometimes they're in such a terrible position where you want to have this workable, beautiful space, and you got the pipes running up along the ceiling and you got to move them. Well, that's going to be a costly venture. Older access, entrance, exits may not work for your new business model. And you must have neighbor buy-in. Otherwise, they can complain about anything they want, and that can definitely cause delays. So while you're doing construction, if they don't like what you're doing, they can raise a fit about it.